Okay, let's go through the 4.1 to 4.3 review. The first question asks you for the coordinates of the points, and it's a drop down. So first they're asking you for the coordinates of the point labeled 4. That is +2, -3. So you select +2 from the drop down and then -3. The point labeled 6 is -3, -2. So you click the -3. And I realized earlier that when I selected the answer for this, I didn't grab the negative sign. So I think 2 was in here twice when it should have been a -2 and a 2. So this should be -2. I will make sure that it is correct on the test so that it actually shows you the negative. Because I had a couple people come up, I swear I picked -2. I couldn't see the negative. I'm like, yeah, that's because it wasn't actually there the first time around. So sorry about that. Determine the quadrant in which the point -3/2, 7/4 is located without plotting the point. Now, just because it says that you can't plot the point doesn't mean that you can't sketch it out. I don't care what these numbers are. All I care is that it's negative, positive. So negative means I go this way, positive, up. That is this quadrant, which is quadrant 2. And there are some crazy answer choices here, like quadrant IX, that's quadrant 9, that doesn't exist. Nebraska. If you click Nebraska, I'm tempted to just take a couple points off because there definitely is not a quadrant in the coordinate plane called Nebraska.
Something's wrong with it.
I mean, if it said Iowa, maybe, but Nebraska, no. This question is asking you to determine all possible quadrants in which the point x, -5 can be located. Assume x is a real number such that x cannot equal 0. So basically what they're saying is x could be positive, x could be negative. So if x was positive, you would have a positive, negative point. Positive, negative would put you somewhere down here in quadrant 4. If x was negative, you would have a negative, negative. Negative, negative would put you somewhere here in quadrant 3. So your correct answers are quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. And I don't know if you noticed, but these are actually, these tiles are laid out in the same position as the quadrants. So positive, negative, negative, negative. If you do that kind of with your hands, it will show you which of those quadrants you need to go in. Determine whether or not each ordered pair is a solution to the equation. Okay, now I see that 12 is an x value on here twice. So I'm definitely going to plug that 12 in. So I'm going to do 2/3 times 12 plus 6 and see what that equals. So I'm going to grab my handy dandy calculator and type in 2/3, so 2 divided by 3, times 12 plus 6. It gives me 14. So when I use an x value of 12, I get a y value of 14. That means that 12/14 is a solution. Is 12/17 a solution? No, because when we plug 12 in, we get 14, not 17. Then we need to plug in 11. So 2/3 times 11 plus 6. Where's my calculator? 2/3 times 11 plus 6. I get a decimal. Is the y value of this point a decimal? It is not. So that is not a solution. And then I try plugging in 9. 2/3 times 9 plus 6. 2/3 times 9 plus 6. I get 12. 9, 12. That works. That is a solution. So you're just plugging in those x values and seeing if you do get the y value or not. Complete the table and use the results to determine which is the correct graph of y equals the absolute value of x minus 1. So you have to plug each x value in. So if I plug in -2, what is the absolute value of -2? +2. And +2 minus 1 is 1. So in this box, you would type in 1. Then do the same thing with -1. Absolute value of -1 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is -1.
Wait, what did I do in my paper?
Then absolute value of 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. And then absolute value of 2 minus 1. Absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Once you have that x and y table, you're just picking out which graph has those points on it. So the point that I really focus on is the point 0, -1. So where your x value is 0, 0, -1, that's where it crosses the y-axis. It needs to cross the y-axis at -1. So which of these graphs crosses the y-axis at -1? Only that one. So if I were you, fill out the table. You'll get some points for filling out the table correctly. I think on the test, it's an x squared, not an absolute value of x. So it should be a little bit easier to plug in. But then focus on just that 0 whatever point. That will help you to pick the correct graph. Using the graph, determine the x and the y intercepts. The answer choices are below the table. Drag the x-intercept or intercepts to the left column and the y-intercepts to the right column. You will not use all of the answer choices. The x-intercepts are where it crosses the x-axis. And remember, x-intercepts have coordinates something, comma, 0. So when you're looking for the x-intercepts, you're looking for the ones that have a 0 as the y value. So the first one is -2. That means -2, comma, 0. Drag that one into the x-intercepts. Remember, you can't use your finger for this. You have to use your mouse. The next x-intercept is at 1, so that would be 1, 0. And the next one is at 3, so 3, 0. Notice there is a 0, 3, a 0, 1, and a 0, -2. Those are the distractors that are there to check to see if you remember that your x-intercepts have to have a y value of 0. Your y-intercept, it looks like it crosses. This one has a weird scale on the y-axis. So if this is 4, that means the next one would be 8, and the next one would be 12. So the y-intercept is 0, 12. The graph on the test does not have a funky scale. It is a scale of 1, so it'll be easier to find those numbers. To find the x and y intercept when you're given an equation, you plug 0 into the other letter. So the x-intercept must have a 0 in the y-coordinate. The y-intercept must have a 0 in the x-coordinate. So even if you just put that in, you're going to get at least half of the points. Okay, so if we plug 0 into the y, 2x minus 0 equals 0. Oops, that's not 0, that's 8. That would make a huge difference, wouldn't it? 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our x-intercept is 4. Then plug 0 into the x. 2 times 0 is 0. So we have -y equals 8, which means y equals -8. All right. Use the vertical line test to determine which graphs represent functions. This is a multiple select. There might be more than one answer. So this first one passes the vertical line test. Does the flat oval pass the vertical line test?
No.
No? There's no answer eliminator tool on this one. That stinks. How about this piecewise function? Do you guys remember piecewise functions? Because there's a closed dot on both of those, if you put a vertical line at x equals 2, it would pass through both of those points, so that one is not a function. What about the absolute value?
Yes.
Yes. I think on the test there might only be one, but I don't remember. Evaluate the function for the given values. This is where you're plugging it in. So f of -2 means plug in -2. 1 minus 2 times -2 plus 5 times -2 squared. I highly, highly recommend using parentheses for this instance right there. If you're plugging in a negative number, you need to put that negative number in parentheses so that if you have to do something like square it, your calculator does it correctly. If you use parentheses, you can just type this into your calculator. 1 minus 2 times -2 in parentheses, plus 5 parentheses, -2, close my parentheses, squared. The correct answer is 25. If you do this on paper, you would do 1. -2 times -2 is +4. -2 squared is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 plus 4 plus 20 is 25. Then you want to do f of 4. 1 minus 2 times 4 plus 5 times 4 squared. You can do that by hand if you want, or type it in. $73. Determine whether or not the relation shown is a function. Remember, if there are repeated x's, then it is not a function. So take a look at the points. 3, 5, -2, 2, 3, 6, 5, 8. I really just want to look at the x's. 3, -2, 3, 5. 3 happens twice, so it is not a function. Where is my mouse? There it is. The other one, you can basically use the vertical line test. That one is a function. And the last question is asking about domain and range. And I set this so that it doesn't matter what order you type them in. It technically is best if you put the x values in numerical order from smallest to largest. Same thing with the y values, but you can put them in any order. The domain is simply the x values. So the x values I see are 0, I see 1 and 2 and 5. So that's just those x values. 0, 2, 5, 3, 2, 4, and 1, 5. So we're looking at the x values 0, 5, 2, and 1. If you put them in 0, 5, 2, 1, you would get them correct. The y values are the domain 2, 3, 4, 5. And that actually is already in order. So 2, 3, 4, 5. On your keyboard, you can use the tab button to go between those fields to type in a little bit easier without having to click every time. That is all. Let's see how we did. Yay, 100%.